Ladies, gentlemen, and internet trolls, welcome to yet another episode of Fan Fridays, the show where I give outsiders an inside look into the mind of an MLB All-Star. Have you ever wondered how I get my mind right before a game? Let you know right after the break. All right, let's answer some questions from YouTube first. Without naming names, can you share some of the pranks that players pull on each other, perhaps, or what lands players in Kangaroo Court these days? Well, I can honestly say I've never been part of a Kangaroo Court in my big league career. The only time I was part of one was 2011 in high A ball, my first 2.5 weeks of my pro career. I ended up in Kangaroo Court for showing up late to the season. I got fined for $1 for each of the millions that I signed for. So I was $7, and then fined for showing up late to the season. I was 4 months late to the season, so I got fined another $4, $11 fine. It's pretty intense. But no Kangaroo Courts in the big leagues as far as I've been involved with, unfortunately, because it's a really fun thing. As far as pranks go, man, there's been some good ones. There's the dugout pranks where you put some gum on a ball and you stick it to the roof and you just wait for someone to sit underneath it and hope it falls on them. It's gotten creative where people have tied a string to the edge of a cup and hung the cup on a shelf or set it on a shelf or on a little hook. It's full of water. And as soon as someone sits underneath it, they have the string on the other end of the dugout and they'll just pull the string and dump the water on their heads. We've had players' shoes put in the ceiling and hidden in the ceiling of the clubhouse. Players' shoelaces taken off their shoes and frozen in a block of ice. There's all sorts of funny little things that go on. All good-natured, of course. Question number 2, will I be mic'd up for a spring training game this year? Well, probably not, because there's infinite hoops that you have to jump through to do that. One, you have to ask permission from MLB. They have to then go get permission from the rights holders of the game. If that's okay with both parties, then the MLB has to go to the teams involved and the umpires and ask permission for it to happen. If all three of those entities are okay with it, they come back to us and they say, yes, it's okay, it's approved. Then each team has to notify all their players and the umpires who's going to be mic'd up and for what part of the game or the whole game or whatever the case is. And then we can use that mic'd up footage, maybe, if the rights holders to the game allow us to, because I think technically they own that footage. And the way MLB works, it's a large organization and it takes forever to get anything done. So by the time we try to jump through all these different hoops, it just always gets lost and it's just not worth it anymore. Which goes to my point, why? That's so intriguing for fans. Can we just do that more? The NFL seems to figure it out. They mic people up during the most intense games of the year, Super Bowl, playoffs. Can we engage with young fans who want to see that? I've ranted about this already. I'm sure I'll rant about it again. But just one of the many things that makes it impossible to really connect with fans in that way. All right, question number 3, do I watch any other sports besides baseball? Yes, I actually don't like watching baseball when I'm not playing it. I see so much of it during the year that I won't even tune into all the postseason games. I'll tune into some of them, but I need a break at some points. But I do watch college football a little bit and college basketball a lot. I love playoff hockey in the NHL, one of my favorite things. March Madness and Stanley Cup playoffs are probably my 2 favorite sporting times of the year, and they kind of happen right back to back with each other, so I get a really nice, long, enjoyable sporting time. But those are really my favorites. Duke basketball, in college basketball, and I'm a Sharks fan in the NHL. And college football, I don't really have a specific team that I'm diehard about. I like watching Alabama, Michigan, for all my Ohio fans, go blue. So those are my sports that I enjoy watching. All right, and now for some questions from my fans over at trevorbauer.com. Harold Kennedy wonders, what would you recommend to my 13-year-old who's throwing 80 miles an hour to keep his arm healthy? Is it okay to throw an occasional curveball? There's a lot of things that go into it. Get strong physically, just be in shape, get stronger. It's about the time that you can start doing some strength training, start with some body weight, general fitness, stuff like that. But being in shape and being strong is super important. Maintain a good throwing load, consistent throwing load year round. Don't take a lot of time off. The more time you take off, the more time it takes to build back up safely. And most people take too much time off and they try to build up too quickly, so they're not prepared for the game when they go out there. Throw weighted balls. I recommend that. Do it in a safe way, primarily as a warm-up at that age. I think it's good. You can do some velocity training if you know what you're doing, but I wouldn't recommend that if you don't have someone coaching you through it and really monitoring it. But doing it for warm-up before you throw is very beneficial. Get some long toss in. Follow the Jaeger Sports long toss program. Alan does a great job of laying out exactly how you should do it. So if you haven't checked that out already, go ahead and do that. Those would be my recommendations without ever seeing mechanics or understanding anything about your specific situation. But those are all some things that are important to do for health. Next up is DJ Wilkinson, who asks, do you take time off throwing? If so, how much? And why did I choose this method? I do take time off throwing, primarily for my mental state. I don't take very much time off, usually 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks after a season. I throw pretty much year round. My thought on this is if I take so much time off, one, I'm missing a lot of training time, but two, what is the purpose of taking that time off? What problem am I trying to solve? I think a lot of times people just do something to do it because it's been recommended or other people are doing it, but you really have to look at what problem are you trying to solve? Is there an injury? Do you have to rehab something? Are you out of whack? Is your shoulder depressed and rolled forward? Is there what are you trying to solve with the time off? So the way I do this is I get MRIs on my shoulder and my elbow after every season. If I don't see any significant change, then there's no physical issue that I have to take time off for. Is there something else going on with my body? Perhaps my ankle's messed up or my hips are not feeling right or something like that. Well, in that case, I'll take some time off to get those right, but I'm not taking time off completely. I'm working on the rest of my body to get myself back to a position where I can throw. So that's kind of how I've developed this method that I have is, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? If there is no problem, then, continue throwing. Alex Crosby asks, how do I self-assess mobility needs? That's a good question. I do a lot of stuff at end range of motion, end range of joints, but in a controlled setting. So if I can't do, I think of an example here. Let's say I can't do a sleeper stretch. Like I don't have very good internal rotation of my shoulder. That's something that I've addressed just by, measuring what my total arc is. I can't go in here very well, but I can go back really well. So when I go to work on that, I go to end range and I try to press into something and out of something. So I get good at controlling that motion at end range, and then I try to go a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. That's kind of how I work on things. So when I'm going through these different motions, perhaps it's an internal rotation with my hip or it's T-spine rotation or whatever the case is, I just go through a checklist of different movements and different exercises, and then if I find restriction somewhere that I don't think I should have, I kind of work in that spot. Maybe it's foam rolling, trigger points, maybe it's pails and rails and end range stuff, but that's kind of how I do it. If I don't have a specific problem on the mound, like I'm moving fine on the mound, if I'm moving fine in lifting and whatnot, then generally I think I'm pretty okay. For me, it always comes back to what problem are you trying to solve. If there's no problem, then, sure you can do some maintenance and whatnot. And that's what the end range stuff is about. But doing mobility for mobility's sake, a lot of times is wasted training economy, in my view. Last but not least is James Atkinson, and he wonders how I get my mind right before I pitch. I'm one that I like to space out before I pitch. I don't like to focus too much, so I go through my routine. I start my routine about an hour and 40 minutes before a game, and I'm laughing with teammates, joking around, listening to some music, whatever the case is. And about 45 minutes before the game is when I walk out to the field. At that point, I put my headphones in and I have a pregame playlist that I go through, that I listen to every game. And that's really when I start focusing. I block out the outside distractions, listen to the music, let the rhythm, some of my favorite songs, let the rhythm get me in rhythm, let the music get me in rhythm. Warm up slowly and enjoy the music. Don't try to get too technical on how my body's moving or anything like that. It's just get me in the right mindset, or get me in the right mind state to go compete. That's really what it's all about mentally before a game. How do you get to a spot where you're confident and you're ready to go out there and try to beat someone? So it's pretty simple for me. There's not a whole lot of like mental games that I play or focus drills or going over a bunch of scouting reports and memorization or anything like that. It's mostly just music and trying to get into that competitive mindset. All right, that's a lot of your questions. So I, as always, have a question for you, and that question is, who do you think will win the MVP this year in the NL and in the AL? Let me know in the comments below. And that's all for today's episode. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, rants, praises, drop those in the comments below. Hit that like button. If you'd like a shout out in a future video, head on over to trevorbauer.com, sign up for my email list, and submit your question on the homepage. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. Share it with your friends and help me get to my goal of 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2020. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on Tuesday.